Kathleen Laundy is a licensed psychologist and family therapist who has treated children and families for over 40 years. She is a frequent presenter on school-based practice. She is the chair of the Family Therapy in Schools Topical Interest Network of the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. Kathy and her colleagues will present on second-order change in schools, systemic lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. Kathy.
Peter, thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Welcome, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here and to introduce my team for the second year. We had originally planned to call this second order change, but what we realized is that our group has been looking at first order change, second order change, as well as third order change brought on by the COVID epidemic, the pandemic, as well as the social justice ramifications that are just pervasive. What we'd like to do is introduce to you what we've been up to the last year since we presented last year, and to talk about some of the important first order change we've been introduced to as we've interviewed people in schools across the US and beyond. And then we want to look at second order change, which is where we all come together as Oxford systemic thinkers. And we will talk about that. And then we will talk about third order change. My colleagues, Erin Cushing, who is our chair-elect, will talk about what we've been up to this year. Wayne Fuqua is going to talk about some first order change experiences that teachers have been going through. Michael Rankin is going to talk about a family he worked with that whose work really impacted that child as well as the whole family system. And then Eileen Klima is going to share her continuing work with Humboldt school system in Northern California. We are just really thrilled to be, I'm having trouble moving my slides here. Here we go. Here we go. Yep. So what we're going to talk about is that the America, the United States, and many other countries have really had more of a Eurocentric model of services, which really works on first order change. And what we're going to do is expand that as we talk about the things that we've been doing. Erin's going to talk about our activities and workshops and collaborative efforts. And then our other colleagues will talk about the systemic changes, first, second, and third order. Now, want to share with you that there has been a very exciting process that's gone on among our group, that school systems, as you know, as is healthcare, really focused on a presenting problem brought by one particular person or residing in one child. And our position as systemic thinkers has really been to move things into second order change, to change the rules about the rules so that changes can be more deep, can be more permanent. But as we've been interviewing people over the last year, we have been fascinated and touched deeply by the school, community, societal systems that have been impacted so dramatically. And we've been talking here today, the last couple of days, about some of those changes that are just really, really profound. So we're going to be looking at those. Erin is going to speak first. I also want to thank the folks that have presented before about talking about multidisciplinary collaboration, that it's something that for this particular group has been second nature. We have, it's been part of the attraction to talk about what psychology brings, what social work brings, what counseling, family therapy, and psychiatry all bring. But it is something that we have struggled with in the US because such services have been so siloed. And what we have found is that the coronavirus pandemic has given us just many opportunities to really build on that collaboration and really to make things happen in a more exciting way. So we see that this is just a great opportunity for our multidisciplinary colleagues to really build these systems that we're working on. Okay, so Erin Cushing, my colleague, is going to now talk about what we've been up to the last couple of years. Erin?
Thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here again with all of you. So yes, what we have really been making efforts to do in our TIN, our Topical Interest Network, over the past few years since its inception, is to be a place, an opportunity for people to connect and to collaborate and learn from one another. And throughout the past year, especially because of the pandemic and because of everyone being forced to do things so differently from what we had previously, we have made it an even more overt effort to bridge gaps and to try to connect people from multidisciplinary backgrounds. So ways that we have done that have been through our e-newsletters. We publish those 4 times a year, and we make an effort to advertise upcoming workshops, advertise advocacy efforts across the country, advertise upcoming events and things that would be of interest to our school-based network members. But also we make a point to highlight a new member in each issue. And so that member has been somebody national, somebody international. It could be somebody who works inside a school system, somebody who works outside and provides research. Several of our interviewees have been from this Oxford Symposium gathering, and we have been so grateful for your involvement and participation. But it's really an opportunity to try to, again, bring multidisciplinary folks together and provide opportunities for meeting and collaborative efforts. The other way that we have done that is through our ongoing Zoom workshops. And we started those again at the inception of our network, so back in 2019, but we made a real effort in the past year again to provide information for our members about multidisciplinary colleagues and those connections again, but really to emphasize their systemic initiatives and services that they were offering in a wide variety of places and contexts. So we featured people who were providing social justice initiatives. We provided workshops around internal family systems movements and opportunities for learning in districts. We have offered a variety of opportunities for our members to meet and greet, so to speak, people across the country who are just doing some really, really interesting and innovative systemic work. 2 of those, if we could go to the next slide, Kathy, thank you, are the Promise program out of Florida and the Prepare model in California. So the Promise program is a social justice movement program that was created in 2013 in a connection through the NAACP, the NAACP, the Broward County School District, and Nova Southeastern University in Florida. It was created as a movement to basically a response to the zero tolerance policies that the school had been using for problem students in the past. And they were recognizing that things like suspensions and arrests for these students weren't working. And so what they started doing is for students who had committed nonviolent crimes, rather than putting them into a punitive channel, they started providing mentoring, academic support, behavioral support, tutoring, and whatever other kind of community-based services they needed. And one of our own, Dr. Ann Rambo from Nova Southeastern University, took on the role of consulting with the school district and mentoring MFT graduate students from Nova Southeastern University to provide family therapy for these youth and their families. And in just an amazing amount of work, but amazing responses, of course, too. Within 1 year, the recidivism rate of students who had been previously suspended dropped from 50% a year to 8%. And arrests dropped in half from roughly 1,000 per year to 500. So the kind of, community support and multidisciplinary work that was going on there among those pivotal programs is just kind of extraordinary. The other model, one of the other models that we featured this past year comes from Dr. Stephen Brock at the University of California in Sacramento. And he has worked with his colleagues there to develop a crisis preparedness model that is really based on assessing for trauma and assessing students for traumatic stress, and then doing preventive work with the school district to really kind of make them prepared for potential crises and to be able to intervene and respond accordingly. And so he does a lot of training with the variety of school officials, staff, administrators, janitors, everyone, and does a lot of multidisciplinary work, again, providing a lot of multi-tiered systems of support within the school and within the school community as a whole. So we were really proud to feature both of them.
Erin, thank you very much. Erin is going to be the new chair of our Topical Interest Network in School-Based Family Therapy starting in January. I have headed the group through the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy for the past 3 years, and Erin is going to be our new chair starting in January. So thank you, Erin. That's great. And now we turn to Dr. Wade Fuqua, who is our secretary, and he is going to talk about first order change. He's going to illustrate some of the dynamics of some of the first order changes and challenges that have happened with teachers during the coronavirus.
Perfect, thank you. So definitely, as we are headed here in the States, headed into a new school year, we are, kind of still debriefing from last year and learning from last year. And many, researchers, public figures, mental health professionals have kind of continued to refer to the COVID-19 pandemic as this collective trauma. And many are identifying and beginning to see these ongoing exposure to stress in that, and how that changes and influences someone's health and mental health. So we're beginning to understand that more fully with these frontline workers, of which we should consider school-based mental health professionals on the front lines. There is a relationship between this experiencing of a collective long-term trauma and then a person's level of functioning, in particular, someone's like sleep and exhaustion, those elements there. Medical professionals have been really the primary focus for discussions around self-care. Mental health professionals probably second there as well. School teachers very much so need to be a part of that. School counselors as well. They're all at this increased risk of trauma, exposure to, and this stress. Some initial kind of research that you can find in our paper that we wrote for this indicates that increased teacher stress throughout the pandemic is really beginning to affect students. So this is kind of where we're seeing this first order impact. Students in the classroom. Teachers are the primary source of safety and security for students, as we know that they do tend to be. It's nearly impossible for teachers to maintain a safe, supportive environment when they don't feel safe themselves. There's a lot of factors with the decreased quality of life ratings for teachers, and a significant source of stress is the increased dependence on technology and working from home. School buildings are closed or partially closed, partially open. Teachers, they're spending so much more time at home. They already did, right? Taking so much work home, so much extra time over the summer and everything, that there's less and less of a separation between work and home. This certainly isn't unique to schools and school-based professionals. But nevertheless, it does increase stress levels and contributes to what some of the research is beginning to refer to, and this would be a first order impact of techno fatigue or techno exhaustion. I've seen it written as well. And particularly as people are beginning to return to, non-pandemic life, or consider that, they may experience this increased exhaustion once the effects of a trauma response, which kind of coming out of it, begin to subside. Unfortunately, many teachers, school-based counselors, professionals are considering a return right now, and in the middle of this, different variants becoming, everywhere, and so some of these fears that we thought would subside this year are back, and maybe even worse than ever. And so a particular importance, I think, is that in this time with school-based mental health professionals, school counselors in particular, regardless of the discipline of the person who fills that role, whether they're a counselor or a marriage and family therapist or a psychologist or something else there, they maintain multiple roles within a school. We all know this. They serve the needs of the students, of the parents, of the staff members, really bringing a lot of things together there. And for more than a year now, school counselors have had to connect students and families through the use of technology, which contributes to this techno fatigue. And that's not an altogether negative experience, but it's certainly a very different experience and very challenging experience. There's beginning to be some research coming out around this, and a lot of it indicates that multiple areas of concern that school-based professionals identify for students returning to schools. This would be more of that first order change impacting of seeing changes in academic deficits, social emotional learning difficulties, after having been removed from a social environment for a year if they were at home. And then just behavior problems, more adjustment problems and whatnot of going back into it. So each of these really probably requires a lot of focus by school counselors and teachers, which increases that stress level again in a different way. So we're just piling it on. These professionals very much have the knowledge to address all of these problems. They may not have enough time and enough just strength within themselves to do it after all of this time. So therefore, you're beginning to see increased burnout and increased reports of stress, dissatisfaction with jobs as a result of these feelings of exhaustion, coming out with forgetfulness, and just changes in staff attrition. So that's really kind of there's first order impacts there. And now I think Mike is going to talk about second order change through his lenses.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you so much. And again, we thank Sibnath for his research that he shared with us this morning about impact on students. And this is just such a stimulating opportunity to begin to do this research with a broader population of people who've been affected by this pandemic. Wade, thank you. Okay, Mike is our treasurer of our Topical Interest Network. He is our Kentucky colleague who is going to talk with us about something we all feel very familiar with, and that is second order change. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And it's a privilege to be a part of this Topical Interest Network and of AMFT, and to be here in the Oxford conference. And talking about, Kathy is going to get into, I'm talking about second order change, and Kathy will be getting into third order change. And some of my information has come from the book by several people, and Fred Piercy writes the preface of it, and he talks about the necessity of therapists being attuned to culture and all the inequities involved in many cultural dimensions and throughout, and all the stuff that is impacting all of us globally, not just in us here in the United States, but globally, with all the uprisings and the pandemic. And Carl Tom, who is a psychiatrist up at Calgary, Canada, he talks about how mental health, we think of mental health up here in the head, in the brain, but he says mental health is really what's between us. And so that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what is impacting us and how we are dealing with that stress. And it's really important to think about how we're being affected by the COVID and all the things that are going on globally. And it's very impressive to hear what's going on globally in terms of schools. It's just tremendously impressive, and all the hard work that people are doing. I am not directly in the school system. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapy practice in private practice. But I see people who have children in school, and they see the children with me and the family. So I like to work not just with the child, but I work with the whole family and the dynamics of what's going on in the family. And I'd like to share with you today a case I had several years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, where a couple came to see me. It was a husband and a wife, and the wife was a stepmother to the husband, to the father's son, and the father and the mother were never married, but they had a biological son. And the father had some issues, I believe, with drugs at one time, and the mother absconded the child from Louisville, Kentucky to Utah in the United States. And the father lost contact with his son. So the father then found out about 2 years later where they were, and he found out that they had come back to Louisville. So that finding that out, he then wanted to have time with his son. And so I worked with, and he went to court, and he got a court order that he had to undergo supervised visitation. And the father and the stepmother asked if I would supervise their visitation with their 7-year-old son. So I worked with them for 15 weeks. And the stepmother and the father were incredible parents, and they had a tremendous impact on the son. And finally, I went to court with them after about 15 months, and the father was able to get joint custody of the son. And what happened was the father and the stepmother really worked hard, because the biological mother was not interested in making sure the son, he missed so many days, many days at school. And there was nothing the father and the stepmother could do about it until they got joint custody of this boy, this 7-year-old boy. And then finally, once they got joint custody, the father and the stepmother could get more involved in the school. The school would then open up records to them. And as they opened up records, and then the father and the stepmother made sure that that little boy got to school every day. He didn't miss school. He began to grow in his school ability and learning, and he had a tremendous impact on his father had tremendous impact on him and his stepmother. They were really. I told the judge when I had to go to court. The judge asked me what was my opinion, and I reported to the judge that according to my AMFT Code of Ethics 7.7, that I cannot make a decision on whether they have custody or non-custody or visitation, because I'm not trained in that area. And I did tell the judge I thought the parents wrote a book on parenting. They were very compassionate. They were very open. They were able to address the son's feelings and some of the issues the son had with his father and some of the issues he had with his stepmother. And they kept working with him. They were able to interact with him. They did a lot of things with him in terms of encouraging him about school, homework. So he began a whole new life with his father and his stepmother, which changed his life. It changed the structure of his life. It changed his worldview. It helped him to understand responsibility and also to have a lot of fun in life. And then what's more important, he was able to make friends at school because he was there on a continuous basis. And the psychiatrist, Bruce Perry, said, one of the most important things a parent can do for a child is to teach that child how to make friends. And this is what that boy did. So there was a lot of good accomplishment there. There was second order change because the father and the stepmother got involved in the school, had a lot of good communication and back and forth talking with the teachers, and kept very much abreast of what the son was doing, what really changed his life. So that was my experience in working with one family like that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And that is the second order change that all of us see in school-based family work. And it's something that we really wanted to celebrate on behalf of this family. The coronavirus and the social justice events of the last couple of years have magnified the order of change in ways that none of us imagined. And we have begun talking about, and this has had a profound effect really on our topical interest network, on our group, on our work as systemic thinkers, to think about third order change that involves changing communities, larger bodies, societies, in a way that we haven't been able to do before. But I think those of us that are trained as systemic thinkers it provides a real opportunity for us to do things that haven't been done in schools before. So our last speaker is Eileen Klima, who is our other member of our team, our fifth member of the team. And Eileen is going to talk to us about the third order change that she has witnessed in Northern California.
Hi, thank you, Kathy. I work as a counselor in a high school in Arcata, California, and our school district, the Northern Humboldt Union High School District, is one of 28 school districts located in Humboldt County, a rural coastal area in Northern California. Humboldt County has the largest population of indigenous peoples in the state of California. In October of 2020, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, released a report titled Failing Grade, the Status of Native American Education in Humboldt County. The population in Humboldt County is approximately 81% white, and 19% are Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC. The ACLU report also mentions that this statistic may not reflect the true diversity of Humboldt County because mixed races are not counted in the statistic. During the pandemic, the school campuses were closed and resulted in the majority of classrooms learning happening online. This provided opportunity for school officials and local agencies to collaborate to address areas of concern. Local agencies offered to help educate and train personnel on race, social justice, and equity issues. This is the beginning of a long process. The immediate goal was to raise awareness that systemic change needs to happen and that all community groups needed to work together to benefit the students and their families. The following is a small sample of the community members who worked along with our educational and health faculty during the 2020-2021 school year. Rain Marshall works as an Indigenous education advocate for the Northern California Development Council. Meredith Oram directs the pre-kindergarten through 12th grade Humboldt Del Norte Equity Partnership, which is a collaboration across sectors to support racially equitable outcomes in schools. And Sharon Blanc is the president of the Eureka branch of the NAACP and a community member supporting all Humboldt Black Student Union in Humboldt County. The Northern Humboldt Union High School District plans on continuing to work together with students, parents, and community members and school officials too, to develop a healthier educational environment for all families regardless of race, cultural, or sexual orientation differences. one of our goals is to collaborate and compile a manual to list resources to address the social, cultural, and educational needs of the community. This further represents important third order change that needs to happen to our rural coastal community and up here in Humboldt, that we need to make some changes to our cultural dimensions and systemic support.
It is just such an exciting set of challenges. And it is such a tribute to the fact that in mental health, we have come a long way from looking back in the 1950s at just the interpsychic functioning of human beings. We are now looking at many different systemic layers. And we have been somewhat dazzled and overwhelmed in our topical interest network as we've interviewed new people and new programs. And we're just really thrilled to spread the word and to share the news about these 3 different levels of order change. Thank you all for participating, and thank you, team. And let's turn it over to questions.
No questions?
Not at the moment. I was actually interested in hearing about the third order societal change, Eileen. Oh, there's a hand up from Gertina.
Yes. Yes, okay, I will ask the questions, even if I am going to talk a little later on. But Kathy, thank you very much, and your team, Erin and Michael and Wade. It was really very interesting, and I think a systemic change that crosses all the different levels is something that we need to seriously think about. Your presentation made me think a lot about the presentation we heard yesterday as well about the family and the emotion-focused group therapy by, what's her name, by Zippy Sheckman. But you mentioned one thing which I am particularly interested in, that is into the multiracial, multi-ethnic family, and how you bring about the systemic changes that is necessary for integrating such a either a reintegrated family or a what do you call it, a step family, and then the fact that there are children of different adopted children. So you often have these issues that are not familiar or not often described in the nuclear family of a particular universal ethnic group. So do you have more about that? I think Eileen has something, but I would also like to hear more from Michael about how do you attend to these families that are different from what we traditionally accept as the family.
Eileen, do you want to talk about the school meals that Humboldt did to get people to come in and collaborate?
Yeah, we started a program where we have one of the classes in our high school, the students made a meal, and we invited all parents to attend one night a week. And that was to address any issues. And we were really focusing on our high-risk students and their families. And it was just everybody's welcome. It's not, sometimes it comes down to that your family can be your caregivers or people at school that love you and care about you, that everyone is included, and the important thing is that we love each other and help each other feel welcomed and wanted and important.
I want to add on a little bit to this question, because it is often not the family itself and maybe the small community of the church or the school that has these kind of controversial problems with this reintegrated family or a family with adopted children, particularly if the children are from a different race. But like going into the what do you call it, the shopping mall, and people saying, but how come you are different? You must have actually my son's wife had the comment of, is this now the in thing or the fashionable thing to adopt children of a different color? Or is it, or people saying things more on a community basis of, have you actually stolen these children? They can't be your own because they look different. So it is that is what I mean at the community level, at the third order change level. So how do you bring that about? In the school, yes, we can sometimes manage it, but the community is much broader, and the community is sometimes much more offensive or reactive to these kind of different family systems.
And Bertina, you're totally correct. It's true. I mean, it does happen up here at Humboldt when families look different. People sometimes will make a comment. And what we've really been working on is educating the community on being sensitive and being more understanding of different situations, because so many situations are different.
One of the other things we're doing in Connecticut is identify, and this has come through the Black Lives Matter movement, that there have been community discussions that have gotten bigger and bigger. And there have been a couple of wonderful biracial leaders who have emerged, and they are doing a lot of going into schools to talk with kids, to talk with teachers, to talk with parents about how to engage, how to collaborate, how to be together. I think it's very complex, because right now there is permission in the United States anyway to be angry about things that are different, things that may not be in harmony with one's beliefs. And I think the coronavirus pandemic has only intensified that in many ways. So I think it's difficult. I think it's a challenge, but I think it is through connecting and through collaborating and through celebrating those differences by the folks who are able to. One of the other things is, and this is something that Michael Carter and Emily Hernandez did, that they had a lot of first generation Latino families from Los Angeles who would not come in to the school because it was a cultural issue, it was a third order issue. And they too started doing dinners, they started doing joint activities to get people talking and collaborating together. And one of the things that just so impressed me as the chair of this group, and we had them speak in one of our interviews, one of our Zoom interviews, is that when the coronavirus happened, Emily, who is very computer literate, got every single family in their school-based health clinic on Zoom, and they didn't lose one family. They were able to keep connected with them. And so that was a real tribute, I think, to the kind of third order collaboration that's happening.
So sometimes this technology has actually given us a new way of connecting people that it has not done before.
Yes,
because if you see people in person, it's much more confrontational than when you see people via technology.
Yes, well said.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question to Eileen? This is Jackie. And I just wanted to check with Eileen about the manual. If she could elaborate a little bit on the manual for the third order change.
We're,
And secondary to that would be, is the LGBTQ population also in Humboldt County being studied as far as the program of third order change?
yes, that's included. In Humboldt County, we have the only transgender superintendent. And so she'll be a part of that manual as well.
Great.
But it's kind of, we're in the collaboration stage. We're building the relationships. Relationships are key, I think, to build the trust, to get the information out there, and to, but that's what part of the manual, that'll be in there, definitely. That's big, yes.
Perfect. It doesn't sound like a lot of across the states that this kind of effort in a small area, rural area of California might be the sort of the poster child for the rest of the country to do this. I see good things happening if this gets completed. I know it will. Kathy's there.
Well, I think that there are, what we've been so impressed about in this topical interest network is that as we've connected with different people, there are remarkable programs about first order, second order, and third order change going on all over the country and world. And we've seen it as part of our job to connect these folks and connect these initiatives, to keep hope alive, and to demonstrate really that these things are possible.
Great work. That's a great team you're working with.
Oh, they're wonderful. They're wonderful.
I might add also, if I may, that other states are getting regulations where they have multidisciplinary mental health workers in the schools also. So that's engendering a lot of goodwill, and like Eileen said, relationships are building, and the legislators are very interested in what the public is asking, what the teachers are asking for, what their constituents are asking for. So there's a lot of movement under, maybe sometimes not visible, but there's a lot of movement going on in many states in the United States in terms of legislatures coming out with some regulations on school and mental health professionals in the school.
I think Brian had his hand up.
Brian, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd like to thank Kathleen and Erin and Wade and Michael and Eileen for the wonderful work that you folks have been doing, developing collaborative relationships within different mental health professions, as well as the family therapy profession through your AMFT Family Therapy Schools Topical Interest Network. And you've given us a wonderful snapshot today of what's going on in the country at any of these different levels. My important takeaway from your presentation is that it's really a reminder to kind of think of Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, where he talks about the individual kind of in the center, and then at the next level, the mesosystem. That's where family and school is. And of course, family therapists have been helpful in the revolutionary concept of mental health, extending into that area of school and family. But what your presentation today reminds us is that there are other levels beyond that have a powerful influence on individuals and families. And so at the exosystem level, that's where local politics, community, social services, mass media, industry, all of those have an influence on the community and on families and the macro system beyond that. So your presentation is a reminder to us that just as individual therapists were reluctant to go and deal with the external systems of school and family, so too have those of us who are family therapists, and I'm one, have been reluctant to go beyond to this larger level. But there are programs that you reported on today, And even I'd say 20 years ago, Roman Rohano developed an approach to family therapy called community family therapy. And he was advocating that family therapists be social activists, and that where there is injustice in a community affecting many families, the therapist should consider facilitating that role with the client and that role with himself or herself. That's a revolutionary concept. But it's also 15, 20 years ago been discussed by Chloe Madanis in a presentation she gave called Therapist as Social Activist. That's a very different way of thinking about our role. It's a very new way of thinking, and I want to thank you for drawing that to our attention, because it's something we need to think about increasingly in the future. So please join me in thanking this wonderful group.
Thank you. Thank you.